The next concept and formula that we're going to look at in analytical geometry is the midpoint formula. So you might be able to see how this midpoint formula relates to what we previously did in distance and more specifically equidistance. So if you have a midpoint of a line, that would mean that that midpoint is equidistant from A and from B, but more specifically, it is one straight line. Okay, so we have a formula that can help us find that midpoint given both the x and y coordinate of A and both the x and y coordinate of B. So then that would be that the x coordinate of the midpoint would be the two x coordinates of the points on either side added together and halved or divided by 2. And similarly for the y's, you add the two y coordinates together and halve them. So that would give you the x coordinate and the y coordinate. You might also have seen it in this following format where it says x1 plus x2 and y1 plus y2, each divided by 2, and those are your two coordinates. I think this is what it looks like in your formula sheet. Now, let's use this formula. So they're telling you M, and it doesn't necessarily have to be M, but the capital M, okay? Notice the capital M, sorry. Let's just move back here. Note it is a capital M because small m is gradient, like we've already done in grade 9. Okay, so capital letter M for midpoint. You don't necessarily always have to use M. They might tell you like P is the midpoint of a line. Then you would just adjust your formula to match up with that. So here they're telling you M is the midpoint of line segment AB. So there's A and there's B. Determine the coordinates of M. So the way that you're going to find that, and you can do it all in one step. What you can do straight away is, if you want to, you can say M, you open and close your brackets, you have your two fractions for each of the coordinates, and then you can go substitute. So A is 1 and 3, and B is 5 and 7. Okay, this is the one formula where it's not going to matter if you mix up the order, if you don't write it pair in front, pair at the back, but you cannot put 1, 3 here and 5, 7. It has to be the x's added together and the y's added together. So basically you are finding the middle value of the two x's and the middle value of the two y's. And you can say this is going to be 1 plus 5 is 6 divided by 2 is 3. And 3 plus 7 is 10 divided by 2 is 5. So therefore, the coordinates of M is 3, 5. And can you see that 3 is halfway between 1 and 5? And 5 is halfway between 3 and 7. So this is also something we can do with inspection. But you need to be careful. If, like, you have like this whole question, and then they later on tell you, assume M is this after you've already had to calculate it. Or they ask you, show M is this. Then you cannot just write the answer. Then you are going to have to use the formula and show your substitution. You will also get this formula in your formula sheet. But remember, you're going to write on it before you can get a formula sheet. So in the brain, it is stored. Now, they are telling you A and B are the two endpoints, and M is the middle point or midpoint of that line segment. Determine the coordinates of A. So now this is an example where you can also, given the midpoint, find one of the coordinates. And you will find that this is the only one of the formulas we will be working on, or the only one of the formulas we will do this year, where you can find both an X and a Y coordinate. All the other ones, you can only have one unknown. Or if there's two unknowns, it has to be like T plus 1 and T. You know, there has to be a relationship between them, or relation between them. Now they are telling you the midpoint, -1/2, is equal to. Again, I always, whatever I'm looking for, I put in the first position so that we don't necessarily have to, you know. So this is XA and YA. Okay, if you want to just call them X and Y, that's also perfectly fine. Just note that's a subscript. You cannot write it as this. And then the other point we have is 2 and -2. So the nice thing about this, and you would have seen it on the previous slide also here, you can split up the you can split up the formula. So you can say -1 will be equal to xa plus 2 over 2, as well as saying a half is equal to ya minus 2 over 2. So that's the nice thing, and that's why we can find two different values, two different unknowns at the same time with this formula. So, and then you just have to go about solving for x and for y. So you would first multiply by 2, so you'll get -2 is equal to xa plus 2, and then you go subtract that 2, so xa will be equal to -4. Similarly here, we go multiply with 2, then you'll get 1 is equal to ya minus 2, and you go add 2, so 3 is ya, and then they ask you for the coordinates, so you just go put your information you got back together. So a is -4, 3. Okay, and you can go test this. So if you go look on a number line, if a is here by -4 and b is here by 2, if you go look halfway, so that's once, twice, third time, you'll find -1 is halfway. And you can do the same with finding out if half is indeed the midpoint between 3 and -2. Here, again, we are given, now they just don't have names, but that's also okay. They're telling you P6, this one is the midpoint of the line segment that is connecting this point and this point together. Now you have to go find P and Q. So what you can do is you say P6 is equal to, go write down your bones of the formula. These are the very important parts. This is always where I begin. And then you go substitute. So you have -4 and 3 and -1 and q. And you can see, yeah, I already broke my rule that I always follow, but it doesn't really matter. Then we know this x coordinate and that x coordinate must be equal. So p is equal to -4 minus 1 over 2, meaning it's going to be -5 over 2, and you are allowed to write this as a mixed number, as a fraction, as a, well, this all of them fractions, mixed number, improper fraction, decimal, doesn't matter. But I wouldn't necessarily change anything from an improper fraction unless they ask for it. And then similarly, 6 is equal to this y coordinate, so 3 plus q over 2. You go times with 2 to get rid of this divide by 2, so 12 is 3 plus q, and then we go subtract this 3, so we'll have q to be 9. Okay, so there's your two answers now. P is -5 over 2, and q is 9.